Hey, so in this video, we're going to quickly go through some of the tools you're going to need on your journey as a data analyst in the financial sector. This is to hopefully remove a lot of the barriers to get started. I've been doing this for a number of years. I've taught many people, so I'm hoping that you find this quite easy to follow along. I'm aiming to make it a very practical guide, and in this case, hopefully you get up and running so you can start coding and building things as soon as possible. So the specs that I'm using aren't hardcore for this particular virtual machine. I've only allocated eight threads, if you will, and 16 gigs of RAM and 80 gigs of hard disk space. So not even SSDs. And the actual CPU itself is a really old i7 3930K. So again, it's just to emphasize, you don't need a beefy PC to do a lot of this. Does it make it easier when you're running bigger data applications? Absolutely. But should you be using that as an excuse to not get started? Definitely not. All right, so for our IDE, we're going to be using VS Code. Now, I've used Spider for quite a number of years. I only recently moved to VS Code, but actually the main driver behind that was at work we have a GitHub Copilot account, and that works best on VS Code. So for the last few months, I've actually been training myself up on VS Code, and you know what? I actually like it. So it's been pretty good so far. So that's what we're going to be using for a lot of our tutorials and training sessions. So the first thing you're going to do, open up your web browser of choice. Don't judge me for using Edge. You're going to go to Python download. Then we're going to click on the first one, so downloadpython.org. And we're going to install downloads. Python 3.13 is the version as at time of recording. Just click on that, let that download. So what this is the actual Python language. So you need this in order for any of your other IDEs to function. We're going to install that, double click. Make sure you tick this add python.exe to path. This is going to save you a lot of headaches later on. It just makes it easier for your IDEs to identify where your Python language is installed for the interpreter. So you can customize it, but honestly, I just leave it as default. So install now, let it run. Okay, so that's been installed. This option here, it shouldn't really apply to most people. So all this is if you've got a really chaotic folder structure that exceeds the 260 character limit, you will enable this. But in our case, it doesn't apply, so it shouldn't hopefully apply to you. You want to keep a very clean, structured folder structure. The next thing we want to install is VS Code. So again, go to your browser and Bing VS Code download. We're going to download that one, not this one. So I'm on Windows, so I'm going to click on that. It should download. Okay, double click. The usual, don't read and accept. Default. Next, leave all these as default. So again, very important, add to path. But again, that's set as default. Next, install. It'll take a while to go through that. Okay, installed. Now we can launch. And here we are. Now that we've got VS Code installed, so we're going to do a couple of things. First and foremost, you're going to select dark modern. If you're serious about programming, dark theme is the way to go. Now, the next thing we're going to do is, so VS Code runs on things called extensions. So they are, components that, people have created that interact with, your VS Code environment. Honestly, they make it so much easier. And it's also one of the reasons why I've made the switch from Spider to VS Code. Now, off the bat, it won't work. So you need to download a couple of extensions to get Python running. Now, what I've done is I've actually put together a what's called an extension pack that's just going to make it easier for you to get up and running with as little effort as possible. So if you click on this extensions button here, and if you type in finance data analyst, so this option here, so finance data analyst. So this package, it's a curation of various other extensions. What it does is it just makes it easier for you to get up and running. And again, I've put together this list based on my current needs within the working environment. I will go through in a detailed video like how you can use each one of these, but it contains everything you need to actually using Python within VS Code. So it's got a lot of like practical needs, but most importantly, a lot of like visual components, which I'll touch on later on. And I'll also show you how to customize the settings that I've got further down below. So just going to click on install. That's going to take a while to go through and install each of the individual extensions. Okay, now that that's installed, you can click on Dark here. So this is just one of the extensions that it's asked you to install. So you can click on Dark and you can hit enter. But the next thing we're going to do is we are going to amend your settings file just to make it, prettier, but also it adds a bunch of functionality that's just going to make it easier to mimic what we're going to go through in our training video. So if you scroll down, you'll see this section called Useful Settings Config, and it tells you, you need to hit Control-Shift-P, that's the palette, and we're going to load up preferences to amend the JSON file. So we're going to copy all of this information here down, so Control Copy, and then we are going to hit Control-Shift-P, and we're going to look up preferences, and we're going to do a search for open settings. So it's actually called open user settings JSON. So I need to make a few changes there. So open user settings JSON. So you can see it's got these as a default here. And what we are going to do, we are going to replace all of that with the file that we have. So you can just do Control A, so Control A, and then Control V. Depending on how you copied it. So in this case here, you can see the formatting is incorrect. So I'm just going to do a Control A, and I'm going to hold Shift Tab. So it's moved everything aligning to the left. Okay. And then we're going to hit save, Control S, and that's going to make a bunch of changes to our settings. So this here is just the settings, very quickly, a bunch of look and feel settings. So I'm changing my font size, my cursor blinking is expanding, I remove the minimap, a bunch of other stuff which we'll go through. And here is where it's going to cycle through certain themes that I've handpicked basically. So I've set one of the extensions we installed is it cycles through your themes. So I get quite bored with the look and feel. So I've downloaded this extension which cycles every 15 minutes through this list here. If you want to change the list, you can just take one from here and insert it here. So this is the list of themes that I don't want to cycle through, and this is the list of themes that I do want it to cycle through. And we're also going through and setting what we want for the Jupyter interpreter. Now that we've got the extensions installed, so the first thing we're going to do, so we can close this and close this, you're going to click on this Explorer button here. You're going to click on Open Folder. Now, I just like to create a folder where I save all my Python scripts. For the purpose of this tutorial, we're just going to keep it very basic. But as you incorporate this in your work environment, you should create dedicated folders. You might even have a Git repo that your company uses that you want to link to, and you want to have a folder for each specific project. So we're just going to have under Documents, I'm going to create a new folder, call it Py Scripts, and select. Okay, so now this is where my working file is going to be. So you just need to enable trust the authors. and this is where everything's going to be saved down to. So we're going to do our first hello world code. So you're going to hit Control N, new file. Now, one of the settings that we set was for new files to be Python. Okay, so you can change this configuration like any new file you want. You know, if you code in SQL or any other language, you can set it that way. But for the settings, we've set it to Python. So we're going to type in print. So you can see how it's popping up. So one of the extensions that we installed is IntelliSense. So it's going to give you suggestions as you type. So if you're here and you start typing, if you just hit tab, it's going to auto-populate. So print, and again, it's going to give you some suggestions on what that variable is and what you need to input. So print hello world. So before we select that, if you look down here, we can see that the Python interpreter is set to be the part that we set up during the installation. So we want to select that. Now, the other thing it's going to do, if we hit, so select this, Shift Enter, it's going to want to install some additional packages. So if we hit Shift Enter, you will see that it asks you, running source within this requires the IPY kernel package. So we're going to hit install, let that go through. This is basically like some of the Jupyter packages. Again, because of the settings that we use, we want our debugging or interactive windows to reference Jupyter notebooks. So let that go through the installation. Okay, that may take a couple of minutes to install, but you can see now it's printed hello world. So we're going to do another quick test. A equals 2, B equals 3, and C equals A plus B, and we're going to print the output. So print and print C. Okay, so we're going to select all that, and again hold Shift Enter, and you can see we have the result here. But now say we want to actually look at the variables that's assigned to this, and this is one of the things that's I slightly hate about VS Code, where Spider is really good, but there is an equivalent. So if you hold down, we want to open up the panel. So one shortcut is just go Control Shift U. That's going to open up the output panel, but you can see that we've got this Jupyter tab here. If you click on that, you will see all the variables that we've assigned or created and the values that we have, as well as the type. Okay. Now this is going to be something that we're going to be using quite a bit throughout our tutorials. And it's the closest thing that you can get to replicating Spider. So for those of you who are coming from Spider, so that's what we're going to be using. And that's it. We now have VS Code set up, Python installed, and the relevant extensions so we can get up and running. Now that we have the IDE set up, the next thing that you should have is a database. Now, the good thing with what Python comes with is it comes with a database called SQLite. Now, there are so many different databases and database applications and systems out there. For this tutorial, we're just going to use SQLite, and actually, you've already done it. So the Python package already comes with SQLite. I'm going to show you how we can use that later on. We could install SQL Server Express. It's one of the free versions from Microsoft, but for now we're just going to use SQL. But the thing we are going to install is a way to interact with that database and to easily view it. There are a couple of options, but the one we're going to use, so there's one that's dedicated for SQL. I think it's called SQL Browser, which I can show you, I'll link down below. So the one that we're going to use is called DBeaver. They do have a community version as well as a paid version. So we're obviously going to download the community version. To install DBeaver, so again, web browser, type in DBeaver download. We're going to click on this one, download DBeaver community. And we're going to install, again, in my case, Windows installer. And we're going to double click. So in my case, English is the language I want. Next. Yes, of course, I agree. Next for default. Leave all these as default. Next. Install. Great. Now we're going to click on finish. We're going to launch DBeaver. DBeaver. It could take some time to load on the first load. So So you might get this warning, so I would suggest you do exclude it because otherwise it will slow it down quite a bit. So proceed. Now, when you see this message, I would recommend you click yes. So do create the sample database. I hit yes. I do not want to share, confirm. Okay, that's created now. So if we click on the arrow here, so it's going to ask us to install a couple of drivers. So we're just going to say yes, download, download. And now we can see our sample database. So if you click on here, tables, you can see all the different tables that is created. I don't think there are any views. So if you double click on album, for example, the first tab, properties. So this tells you all the different columns that table has, what is called the data type, and whether it allows nulls or not, or it's auto increment. So it's got a lot of settings that we're going to go through at a later stage. But if you click on data, you can see the underlying data that it has. So it's the same thing for all the other tables. So this is the employee table. So in this case, yeah, we can see what the properties like. Don't know if it generates the diagram. Well, yeah, there you go. So it gives you the relational data link as well between two different tables. So yeah, that's DBeaver. So we now have everything we need from a database perspective to be able to create databases with SQLite, and now be able to like visually view them within a front-end GUI. The next thing I'm going to go through is Microsoft Excel. I'm not going to show you how to install it because I'm going to assume you already have an account. And why I assume that is because if you're serious about finance, and in particular data analytics in finance, Excel is the main thing that's used. You've seen all the memes that, you know, it underpins the entire financial system, and I'm not going to lie, there is a lot of truth to it. I am working on a plugin, so I create like a custom plugin, one of the commonly used features. So if anyone's interested in that, you know, I can probably like publish that later on for everyone else to download. So for Excel, open up Start, click on Excel. So we're just going to click on Blank Workbook. This is what it looks like. If you're familiar with Google Sheets, it's kind of like this, but obviously this is the OG. So the commonly used functions that we'll be using in our sessions, a lot of the formatting, date formatting, alignment, you know, just to make things look pretty, conditional formatting. We're going to be using the data tabs. So we're going to create filters, sorting, remove duplicates, in some cases text to columns, and you know what, that's pretty much the core stuff they're going to be using. But you know, if you've never used Excel before, you know, you can have, so 1, 2 here, and then I have some, done. So it's super easy. We're going to be going through Excel in general throughout our course, and you're going to see how you can interact with data that is typically within a CSV format or within an Excel file. So yeah, I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but you know, this is just to show you it's one of the other core tools that you're going to be using as on your journey as a data analyst in finance. So the bonus extension we're going to install is a tool called Codium. It is an AI helper that's going to help you with your coding. So I'm assuming you don't have access to GitHub Copilot. So this is a free version that we can install. So open up VS Code. You're going to go to the extensions. You're going to do a search for Codium. And you're going to click on this one, Codium AI. So install. You are going to have to register an account. So we're going to allow this one. We're going to open the URL. So if you don't have an account, click on sign up, go through all the account login details, obviously the email verification and all that kind of stuff. But I do have an account, so I'm just going to key that in. So once you sign in, it's going to ask you to click on this confirmation. So you're going to hit yes, or open, sorry. And then open again. And then we should hopefully get a confirmation that we are logged in. Yep, successfully logged in. And you can see on the side here, Codium. So if we click on that, we can now see our chat coming up. So I'm going to give you a quick demo on how to use this. So let's just close a bunch of these. Close. Let's go back to our hello world. This is going to change your life. It makes coding so much easier. Obviously, you need to know what to search for and how to incorporate it, but it just makes it that much easier. So we're going to go to one of our files, or you can, Control N to create a new file. And what we're going to do is just have something simple. Write Python code to calculate the business days between two dates, and enter. It's writing the entire code, and it's also going to give us a explanation. So what we're going to do, we're going to just click insert here. And if we select all of this and then hit shift enter, we get the result. So that's one way you can call Codium. Another way you can do it is actually within the editor itself. So if you click on the editor and press Control and I, and say write code to open an Excel file using pandas, enter, it's going to write the code. You can accept it and then saying yep, import pandas as PD and set the file path. And it's got some other cool features where if you just start typing data equals, it's going to give you some suggestions on code. Obviously, it will learn and read what you're typing in the previous sections, but it's a game changer, and we're definitely going to be using it throughout our tutorial. So thanks for watching. This was actually my first video, so if you do have any comments or areas that you want me to focus in on next time, leave it in the comments below. If you did find this video useful, it'd be super helpful to me if you gave it a like and subscribe to the channel for updates on future videos. So the next video I'm actually working on is how to bring and utilize all these tools that we just set up on your first real world project. Thanks.